Your someday starts today. It's time to explore and test the newest science, methods, and trends for creating a life you love with your host, Tanya MFK. Welcome to My Designed Life.
Welcome to My Designed Life, where we bring you realistic ways to create your best life now and then test them to see what really works. I'm your host, Tanya MFK, and I'm so glad that you're here. We're here every other week, so make sure to click that follow and subscribe button to be notified when a new show is up. You can also find us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, My Designed Life Podcast, and TanyaMFK.com. I am so excited to be back. We just finished the holiday break, and I'm really buying into this 2020 hype. You know, I'm not a resolution person, but I am a goal person, and I love new beginnings. But as you know, I also subscribe to the belief that looking back enables us to have better clarity and plan forward. So back in December, we held our 3-hour year reflection and planning session. So during this session, we really look back and take the time to see, where the year took us, what lessons we learned, what were the highlights, what were the lowlights, what did it all look like? What can we glean and learn from where we started and where we are now? And that alone, just having the awareness of where you are now, that is something that a lot of us just don't do. It's not a habit that's been formed to go, where am I really starting the new year from? We look forward, we get excited about all the possibilities, but rarely are we quantifying, where am I right now? Who am I right now? And what is the gap between that and who I'm wanting to be in this next year, which in this case is 2020. So we took the time to do that. It was really awesome, just identifying, where we've come from and where we want to be in the future. And then I also did this 10-year vision. And it was based on the premise of your 2030 self coming back in time to tell you where you are and what your life looks like and who you are. And essentially you getting asked the questions like, well, where do I live? What do I do? Whatnot. And what I like about this exercise is it just gives your mind and imagination kind of a different place to come into, as opposed to just that blank canvas of, oh, I guess this is what I want, or this is what I'm looking for. It's a little fun way of looking at, where you could be in 10 years. So I do really recommend trying this out. I think it's a little fun, and I do think it allows you to jump into the process a little easier when you come to it in this premise of like your future self. So try that out if you haven't already. And if you're still getting yourself moved into the new year, or perhaps you're already set with your goals and resolutions, make sure to grab our free customizable goal habit tracker to keep you and your progress clear. The link is below this video. I've been using this worksheet for over 3 years now. We have a lot of people who have downloaded it, use it, love it. It's really just a matter of like tracking your morning routine, new habits that you want, evening routines, gives you space to reflect on your week, on your day, all of those things together in one place, and it's digital. I do love paper, as you guys know. I use paper a lot, but for this, just having it always handy, always there, kind of reminding you what you're focused on, and then looking at the real numbers, right? Like it's men lie, women lie, numbers don't lie. So you can have a feeling of how you've been doing, or you can see in black and white how you've actually been doing. And that's measurable progress is how we move forward. So if you haven't already, check that out. Like I said, links below. It's totally free. We use it every year, update it every year. So you have all the dates in there. Awesome stuff. So today, on the idea of new beginnings and what we're really searching for, we're going to dive into the 8 keys of happiness. We learned that there are 8. Most will agree that happiness is what we're truly after, but the definitions vary wildly. So what are we really looking for? Now, I saw a definition that said happiness is a feeling that comes over you when you know life is good and you can't help but smile. And I like that. I like that it's the feeling that comes over you when you know life is good, right? Know life is good. Not just that you feel it's good, not that it's, just today I feel positive, but like knowing it. And I do love that. That you can't help but smile. I'm a firm believer that happiness doesn't mean that we're away from trials and tribulations. So I don't know that we'll always be smiling, but I do agree with that, life is good. And maybe it's easier to smile even through the chaos because you're like, you know what, it's all going to be fine. I know it's good, right? Another one that I heard was happiness is a sense of well-being, joy, or contentment. And I definitely like pieces of that as well. It would generally just kind of go, yeah, it's okay, or maybe joyful, or generally content. Like, this is all okay. And then there's this definition. True happiness is an inner quality, a state of mind. If your mind is at peace, even if you have nothing else, you can be happy. If you have everything in the world that the world can give, like pleasure, possessions, power, but lack peace of mind, you can never be happy. And I think too often, many of us subscribe to the I'll be happy when model, waiting for some outside event or circumstance to provide our happiness, to make us happy. But that last definition really focuses on the fact that we have it in our mind. We can live it in our mind, that there's a choice, that it's not about the circumstances around us. And I love that. And I'm sure a lot of you hear that and you're like, yeah. And maybe you've seen the quotes and the posts on Instagram. You're like, yeah, I believe it too. But what does that really mean? What do we do? How do we live that? How do we create it? What does it take to really own that? Is it just me meditating, going, okay, this is what happiness means. This is what happiness means. So what I'm really excited about is that we did meet a brilliant woman who has the 8 keys of happiness laid out for us. So here's our conversation. My guest today is someone who is so magically interesting, accomplished, and incredibly humble. She is the go-to for such organizations as Mercedes-Benz and Fendi, helping them as well as individuals define strengths and values while developing a plan and the mindset to support it. With degrees in mindfulness, coaching, mentoring, team coaching, leadership, business, and philosophy, she is not only a powerhouse of knowledge, but a transformational teacher, guiding others out of dysfunctional patterns, limiting beliefs, and teaching them actionable steps towards happiness and self-compassion. What this all boils down to is a woman with an incredible wealth of knowledge to help people absolutely and completely change their lives. Please join me in welcoming the one and only Giulia Imbastoni.
Thank you, Tanya. This is an amazing introduction.
It was so incredible doing work and research on you and seeing all the paths that you've taken, and some seemingly almost like in opposite directions.
Yeah.
And then when you look, it came together, and I'm like, this woman is incredible. So you made it really easy to do such an introduction.
So thank you.
Yeah. So guys, what we're talking about today, Giulia has taken all of these things I just described, all this knowledge and certifications and lessons, and essentially boiled something down to 8 steps to finding happiness, right? Like, that's the goal, the holy grail. And I think there's so much information out there about it, but the fact that you've been able to kind of break it down for us and give us these action steps, I am just so incredibly excited to hear about how this works. So please, tell us, where do we start?
Yeah, thank you so much. Because happiness is a very huge concept. And I've been studying happiness from my university studies, and from a research point of view, I research what philosophers and psychologists say that is happiness. And after all these studies, that I can even provide some bibliography for people who are interested, I found out that basically there are 8 topics. So all people who will try to understand better this topic will find these topics that maybe are called in a different way, but basically this is the content. So the 8 steps to happiness, and of course, for me, happiness is like a state of well-being and satisfaction that is lasts longing. because otherwise it can mean a lot of things.
Right, right.
So yeah, in this meaning, the 8 steps is one, to be present, so be completely in the here and now. The second step is to be in contact with one's own strengths and values, so things that really energize someone.
Okay.
And
So the first one, we need to be present, which I think
yeah,
we hear a lot, right? We've all seen the
yeah,
quotes. We've seen this thing. I always mention the quotes on Instagram, right? Because we all
yeah,
see this stuff like "be here now."
yeah,
But there is it's easy to say, and I think a lot of people get that. But it's hugely valuable, and
yeah,
so I know we're not going to dive into it right now. But so the first one was present, and then the second one again
yeah.
was to understand your strengths.
Yeah, and to empower even our strengths and values. Yeah, and the third is to be able to shift our mindsets.
Shift our
So this is,
mindset, the ability to shift it, not even just the fact of shifting it, but the ability to shift it.
the ability
Sense.
to pass from a limiting belief to a powerful belief.
Yes,
So this
yes.
is a really coaching work.
Because so many of us think that what we think is happening to us as opposed to us being able to direct, right?
Yeah, right. Because what we think become reality.
Our
Because
reality, absolutely,
we think
absolutely.
that it's true. So we
Yeah.
build our reality with our thoughts. So this is very important. The
Okay, so it's number
ability to
3.
shift the thoughts. Yeah. And the fourth is about forgiveness. Sometimes we are so critical about ourselves and other people.
Yes.
And so this is a really compassionate ability. So this is very important.
Yes.
Yes. And the fifth is the ability of overcoming the comfort zone. So, doing something you have never done before. And it can be even small and easy, like, I don't know, get up at 5 in the morning and do some yoga if I've never done that. So, but it's very
something
important for
that
our
is
brain.
Exercising that courage muscle, and and courage doesn't mean doing something like scary, like jumping off a cliff per se. It can be just something that's scary to you, like getting up at 5 a.m. There are some people are like, there's no way I would feel terrible, but to try that, to do that, that's a huge thing. I totally get that. Okay, so you didn't say courage muscle though. You said it's getting out of our comfort zone, right?
Yeah, but it's about courage, and it's even about change. Because if we don't practice to change habits, it's always more difficult because our brain is able to do always the same things, have an habit, and this gives some security, but we need to change something. So just to train the brain to do that.
Yes. And that's a key thing too, is that courage isn't something that you just have. A lot of people think, well, that's, they're a brave child, so they're a brave human or whatever. It's a skill. It's actually something we can practice and develop, right? But you have to do it. And you'll be bad at it at first, which means you might be scared. You might hesitate. You might not even do it the first time. But as you keep doing that, that's when you develop that skill. So it is huge.
And Tanya, to have courage, it's not about not having fear, because sometimes people, think I'm not so brave because I have fear. No, to have courage, it means that I do things even if I have some fears. So
yes. It's like that Brene Brown. She says, feel the fear and do it anyway.
Yeah, perfectly. Yeah, that's about it. Yeah. And then the 8th key is about gratitude. So, just to be grateful of what I am and how my life is and how my work is, without the intention of change that, just because it is.
Right.
Yeah, this is really
gratitude and acceptance really seem to go hand in hand. It's really one and the same. And absolutely makes sense. Absolutely.
Yes. And then it's the 7th keys. It's about emotional intelligence and relationships. So do something kind for someone, or train our empathy, just being close to people. And this is really something that have an effect on our body and mind. And give us a state of well-being, to be connected,
I feel like the emotional intelligence is something that's so underrated and underappreciated in like a life skill. Like, it's just one of those things that people think we should just have, and we have or don't have. And so if we see somebody who is perhaps overly emotional or doesn't handle their emotions well, and that could be in crying spells or anger issues, we just look down on that, as opposed to seeing that it's something to develop and a skill. And I just saw something, I say just, but maybe a couple months ago. I'm so bad with names. Most of the audience here knows I'm terrible with names, but it's Yuval something. He's written a ton of books on like humanity. And one of the things that he was asked in an interview was kind of looking at like the future and how humans change, and the threat to AI and all of it, the threat of AI, and the concern of like what that means for our future, even just in our jobs.
Yeah.
And they said, well, what do you think with that, with all the changing things? He's like, as we move towards that future and as those things happen, the most valuable thing that humans are going to have is emotional intelligence.
Yeah.
That's the capable thing that we have in a world where a lot of what we can do is getting automated and can be automated. But emotional intelligence is something that can't be done that way. It doesn't work that way. And I was like, wow, I never thought of it like that. I thought it was so cool. So it's like, I was like, man, this is really a skill. It's so important. And so that's amazing. So the question I have before we move into maybe like the next part of this is, are all of those things, are they 8 pieces, or are they 8 steps, like a hierarchy, or do they exist kind of on the same level? Like,
yeah, they are 8 pieces.
Okay, pieces, right? So not like a step by step. Okay,
yeah,
so
it's not
totally
a
makes
step by
sense.
step.
You need all of it at kind of the same time.
Yeah, and for some people something is easier and something else it's not, because for example, I don't know if you noticed, there is something about acceptance and something about overcoming comfort zone. So they are really different,
Yeah, they are. Yeah. Oh my gosh.
It's about to have a balance, and it's
Within
a
them.
life, of course.
Yeah. And I'm sure you'll come. We were just learning about energy with another one of our guests, and she was explaining kind of the same thing, that there was these, I think 7 levels of energy. And she said, you're always going in and out of them. Yeah. It's not like you just attain one and you're at enlightenment and you just live in enlightenment. You may have this glimpse there and then you come back. And so I think that's a big misconception in general about life and about happiness, is that somehow we're supposed to reach this level when it's all okay. And so because we expect that, we're constantly feeling like we're falling short because we're not there. But the truth is that's not how it works, I'm assuming. It's not how it works. So
it is very important, and something I would like to say is that working with coaching on these topics, we can enlarge the duration and the intensity of all these things. So, for example, strengths are really related to the state of flow, that state in which we are really, how I need to be, and I feel my energy and blah, blah, blah. So with coaching, we are able to enlarge duration and intensity. And it is very important because, as you say, there is not a top mountain to find out.
And we need that guidance, right? Because if we're left to what's in our own head and left to our own things, we don't have someone who's actively kind of calling us out on where we need to go or where we're going. We have people calling us out, maybe another, on surface level, our attitude, our emotions, being late, whatever. But like, having that coach or someone who goes, hey, you notice your thinking's going over here, or you're saying over here, like it's a whole different thing. That's something maybe we can get into later too, is the whole misconception of like what a coach does, and like through those things. I mean, that guidance and accountability, it's not even just about the coaching, it's about what accountability in general does for us. And normal day-to-day life doesn't usually provide for that sense of accountability. And that's what the wonderful existence of coaches, I think, are for. So without taking over, because I keep talking, is so we've learned these eight pieces. So then what do we do once we know what they are? What's the next step?
Yeah, so just the 8 steps, we didn't mention it.
Oh, didn't get to 8. I got to 7, right. I get so excited. Okay, so what's 8?
Yeah, it's about, to be in contact with our life's purpose. So it's like a sense of mission that is aligned to our strengths and values.
Okay. Can I ask you, what do you, in your definition here, what do you see as purpose, like life purpose? because I have I have a few different thoughts on how I feel about purpose. So I'd love to hear from you first.
Yeah. It's something that comes from your strengths and values. For example, I can be very practical doing an example of my life because I did my job on that, you know.
Right.
Yeah, so I find out that my main strengths and values were empathy, creativity, and discovering. So I try to figuring out which kind of job should I do, you know, to be more in contact to that.
To foster kind of those
Yeah,
pieces
for
that you've recognized about
example, when I
yourself.
was working in the human resources offices of very big companies, I was in contact with people, but I couldn't practice too much empathy because it was more about managing them, but not have a close relationship to them.
Right.
And even a creativity and discovering after a few years was flat because, you know, in a big company, you are not always changing procedures and innovating programs.
Right.
So, you know, I felt that was not more aligned with who I really was. And so I decided to practice this coaching and training programs. And so I felt that my life purpose was to help people in discovering the true version of the self. That is what coaching
Which
does.
goes in line with the piece that you've learned about yourself, that this discovery, creativity, empathy was part of it. It's so interesting. And I love it that you've explained it that way, because I get really apprehensive around the purpose word when you hear it a lot, because I see it get construed as this very specific action that we're meant to take, and so and it's usually specifically to a job. And so I feel like some people, like, I'm supposed to discover my purpose. Well, my purpose was to, you know, be a cook, or my purpose was to work here, and then they think because they don't know what that is, that, you know, they're missing out on life, they're doing it wrong. And when you see it that way, I just feel like you're outsourcing your worth. You're outsourcing this to some sort of, to really a job. In most cases, a lot of people's perception of this purpose is a job. And so I love that you actually equated the purpose to the values that you had. And then once you were able to identify the values and what was important to you, then the what, you know, like what you did with it was just kind of naturally came together. And I think the answer that you found in this situation still wasn't necessarily specific to a job. In a way, you said, like, I went into coaching, but it was because you found that those three elements were something you could do. And so, guys, I just want to point that out, because if you've heard me talk before, I'm actually a very anti-purpose believer. And it's not that I don't believe that we should do things intentionally, but I don't believe that there's some specific hidden job that we're supposed to uncover, and then once we find it, all of life is perfect, right? Like I was meant to be a yoga teacher, and now that I know it, my life is going to fall into place. Like, that's not how it works. So I had to ask that, because I'm always so intrigued when people use purpose, and I've not yet quite heard it that way in this. It's almost so simple. Like, just what are the things that you value, and when you can look at that, which is an honest look at yourself, what meets that? And like, it could be coaching for now, and 10 years from now we might see Julia and she's doing something completely different, and it still meets those three values, right? Like that. I love it. I'm so excited. That alone is so exciting. Okay. So we went to 8. So 8 was the purpose.
Yes.
And so now we actually did get to 8. So what do we, where do we go from there? What do we do now that we know what these are?
Yeah, I can do different works with people to work on these 8 topics. So we can do like workshops, you know, in a group, and each workshop have a focus on one of these 8 keys, and then from one session to another, they have like some assignment at home, because the very job, and this is for every coaching you do, individual or group or team, the real job is between one session and another.
Of course.
In the session, you work with the coach and you work in increasing your awareness on the topic you are working with, and your accountability. So you have an action plan, something that you practical can do for change your daily life. And then the real job is to do that. So
Right, to actually do the
one
action.
session to the other. Yeah.
That's the whole key about it, guys. The knowledge that's how we say knowledge is nothing without action, and knowledge plus action equals wisdom.
Yeah.
That's the elements we need. So all the knowledge in the world doesn't mean anything until you've taken the action. I actually made a joke earlier today. I said you can read the IKEA instructions, but you still don't know how to put that together until you went in and tried to put it together. So everyone knows how those IKEA instructions, like, it doesn't mean it's going to work that way until you actually put that, couch or table together. So essentially, each of those steps are the areas we need to work on. So for this show, why don't we dive in a little bit to maybe some of the things, maybe some of the areas people struggle, and maybe perhaps a couple tips, just a couple without, I know it's probably a lot more coaching that goes into each of those, but maybe we can touch upon just each one a little bit on, the hang-ups and maybe what we do about it. So step one, remind me again that I'm not step one. It's very different. Piece one of happiness was what?
Mindfulness, to be present.
Okay, so that in general, I think we're all really clear on the hang-ups to that, right? Like, we live in a busy world, we're full of technology, our minds are constantly thinking a bazillion things a minute. So we already know the problem. The problems were inundated, and so what are some quick tips maybe to get to that mindfulness?
Quick tips are to follow some very easy meditation. For example, try with something of 2 minutes, 5 minutes, no more, just to begin,
It's always meditation. And almost every one of our shows, it doesn't matter what we're talking about, you guys, if you haven't learned anything by now, meditation's going to help you. 2 minutes, she said. 2. That's all.
But you can even practice just mindfulness. That is a little bit different from meditation. Meditation came from the Buddhist tradition, so it's something formal, as a beginning and end, and I have to do that even if with an audio from the beginning to the end. Mindfulness is about being aware, and this is something we can do daily. Like, for example, I'm brushing my teeth and I try to be mindful. So in that moment, I try to smell the mint of,
the toothpaste, right?
The toothpaste, yes, or to hear the water that is falling down, and just few minutes. But I am completely present in that. With that activity.
Yes.
Or, for example, I am driving, and this is very challenging because when we drive, we think
it's really easy to actually zone out when you're driving, right? Like, we think we're present because, my goodness, we're driving somewhere, but it's actually quite easy to be like, wait a minute, how did I get here? Like, whoa. So I love this because I actually heard about this. Oh my gosh. Over 10 years ago, someone had mentioned mindfulness, and they had said the same thing. Like, they used the example of doing the dishes, and it seems so weird to me. I was like, okay. And they said, basically, when you're in it, just start by telling yourself, like, I'm doing the dishes right now. Like you're like having this conversation with yourself, like, I'm doing the dishes. I'm rubbing this dish right now. I have the water. Like, you almost like narrating it. And it was an easy way to start to become present, because then you are noticing the water, you're noticing the sound, you're noticing the suds, you're noticing all these things that you don't notice. And I guess the question that some people may have, because I absolutely see the benefits and I love meditation, but what does this actually do for us? What is the benefit of being in the present moment?
I think that the biggest benefit is about the control of the stress. Because we feel very stressed because we have a lot of different thoughts and they are not complete. So, it's about what is called inner dialogue. And sometimes it's like a storm in our head. Like, I don't know, I should be on diet, or I should call that person. And So I'm not expressing a complete thought about why I should be on diet and what can I do, you know?
Right, right. It's like you're standing in a crowd and all these people are talking around you, saying different things, and you're catching glimpses of the conversation, except for you're the crowd and you're the one seeing all the glimpses of the conversation. And so, I mean, it's really, I was explaining to someone earlier today that meditation and having these kind of moments of mindfulness, it's actually like it's an oversimplified way of saying you're choosing what to think about instead of letting it happen to you, which our brain, as we said, it's like shown in neuroscience. We're thinking something crazy like 100,000 thoughts, you know, every 30 minutes or something like that. And so when we actually take a moment to say, this is what I'm going to think about right now, and like kind of come in and, I don't want to say control, but like take the reins and say, this is what we're focusing on. I mean, it calms it all down. Like it just, it brings it in, right? And that calmness does bring happiness. That calmness brings, you know, what the true moment is, what our life really is only that moment, right? Like the past doesn't exist. The future doesn't exist. So when we're actually present in that moment, that's, it sounds so philosophical, but like, that's what life is. That's what it really is, right? In that moment. So yes, that makes so much sense. So then number two was
about strength.
So that's an interesting one. So how do we know our strength or empower our strengths?
This is very important about the strength word, you know, because this is something we are good at, but is even something that we take energy from. So, for example, if I'm very good, I don't know, with Excel, but I don't like that, this is not a strength. This is very important, you know, because this is a big difference. So when I am in my flow moment, so I'm practicing one strength, I feel more energy. So even if I am very tired, for example, I like very much dancing, I can dance for 3 hours and I feel more energy, not less. So it's very important, you know.
Absolutely.
And and there are a lot of tools. I will provide one to you too. It's a very simple strength assessment, just to know.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I was curious. Like, how do you kind of like assess it? So we'll get a strength assessment kind of tool to test this out and see how to find those. Because it's very interesting when you hear strengths. It can be interpreted so many ways. So it's really something that so your definition here is something that we are good at and enjoy, right? It was a big difference. And to put it in perspective, this is something I just recently went through over the last couple of years, was as, you know, my background's in marketing and business development, and I love self-development. So I was kind of doing a little of both. And at one point, I'm very good at, you know, email organization and putting, you know, marketing plans together. And so I was running courses doing those things. And I realized like, I'm really good at this, but I hated doing it. Sounds so terrible. But I was like, I actually don't enjoy it. But it felt so conflicting, because I was like, but maybe I should be doing it because I'm good at it. Right. And I think that's an easy thing for us to misconstrue. Like, well, I'm good at it, so it must be something I'm supposed to, that's my purpose, supposed to do. And it took me a while to really just admit to myself. Facebook advertising, that's another one. We were really good at Facebook advertising as a company. And so we were doing that for a while. And I remember, I think one of our last clients, I was like, I hate running Facebook ads. I don't want to do this. I don't want to teach people to do it. Like, yes, I can have a conversation with someone if they need it, but I don't want this as my job. I don't want to do that anymore. And so we stopped. So I love that it has to be both. So that's awesome. So now number 3, what do we have for number 3? This is the comfort zone, Ryan, right?
Mind shift.
Oh, mind shift. Okay. So mind shift. So where are we with that? How do we do that?
This is very interesting, because with mindfulness, we can be aware about our thoughts and take the distance from them, because, you know, the common error is to think that we are our thoughts and our thoughts are true. So for example, if I think I'm not creative because, I don't know, my parents, when I was a child, they told me and blah, blah, blah. So I built this belief. I think that is the truth. So I want never,
Right.
I don't know, drawing or doing something creative because I believe I'm not. So
Right.
with mindfulness, we be aware that this is just a thought. So I can be
Right. So
creative.
we learn that through mindfulness, and then we come to this part of the happiness, realizing that we are capable of
Yeah.
changing that belief.
Yeah,
Right.
and this is about mind shift. So
Yeah.
change the beliefs from a limiting beliefs to a powerful belief. And
Right.
you know, the most famous coaching question about this is what if? What if I was really creative? You know?
Yes. I love that. My
What?
life coach always says that with me. She's like, but
Yeah,
Tanya, what if it was all okay? And you're like, oh, it would
yeah.
be like this. She's like, guess what it is? You're like, oh my gosh,
And
reality
it
has changed.
opened a lot of solutions.
It
Yeah,
does. So I love this because mind shift, again, going into this world that you and I are both in a lot of ways of this, we're surrounded, there's life coaches and mindset coaches, and we're all in this kind of
yeah,
self-development world. We hear mindset and mind shift a lot. And so it's not just about, it's actually one step before shifting your mindset. What you're really explaining as a key to happiness is knowing that
yeah,
you can shift the
yeah,
mind, because that's the first step, right? If, like you said, those beliefs that you hear as a kid. And I was just hearing this I'm in a growth mindset kids group for like parents, and they were saying the same thing, like be very careful with the labels you tell your child, like,
yeah,
oh, you're just a wild one, or you're just shy, or even saying to
yeah.
other people, oh, he's just shy. And the labels that they take on and hold it and create for themselves. And then we grow up as adults always having this understanding of ourselves, but never actually questioning why or where it's come from. And then above that, not realizing that we have the power relatively simply to just change that belief by alone knowing that we can. Right? Like that is so powerful. And I love that, because it's easy to say, well, shift your mindset. Like, well, yeah, but if I don't even know that I can or believe that I can, that's one of the key components to happiness, right? Like your personality is not frozen. You can always become a new person. And the most of us do it through default, as opposed to like choosing, like, this is who I want to be now. This is might be who I was, but by a simple mind shift, I can be someone else who I want to be. So yes, love that. All right. So that was 3. We're on 3, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So 4, where are we
4
at?
is about forgiveness.
Oh,
So yeah.
the tough one. This happiness thing is tough. Goodness. All right. So forgiveness.
Yeah.
Do you have some tips or guidance for that? Because that's always a tough one for everyone, right?
Yeah. And I'm thinking about the parts of us, like always, growing up, I was a kid. And for example, yes, my mother told me I was shy. So I began to build this shy attitude, and it's playing like a role. There is Roberto Assagioli who called that subpersonality, because it's like really a personality, and it's automatic. So it's something happen if I have an input from the outside, I become that person, shy and with all that characteristics.
Right.
And the key element to transform this is to accept this part of us. So, for example, there is a wonderful meditation that is about visualizing yourself in this state of weakness, because of course it is. And then just be like, your grandmother watching at you, because, the figure of grandmother is someone who will always love you, even if you are not perfect or you're doing
Grandma's usually pretty awesome.
yeah. And so just, being in contact with that part of you and love that part as it is, even if it's
So a
not
lot of it
perfect.
is like your self-forgiveness at this
Yes.
at this step. Okay. So self-forgiveness. And so acceptance and self-forgiveness, because the acceptance is a big part, right? Like being okay and saying, this is where I am. This is where I am now. I think that's an important word there. This is where I am now, because it's not like, this is just who I am. Like that's another excuse I think people come to with their happiness. Well, that's just the way I am. And again, we just discussed in the mind shift section that like your personality can be fluid. You can change that. You're never stuck there. So but at the same time, we need to see where we are, and we need to love ourselves from where we are, accept it. And then once we do that, we can do something different.
Yeah.
Right.
And you know what? When we forgive our part of us, we even increase our relationships. Because, for example, if we really are honest about ourselves, what really makes us angry of other people are part of us we don't accept, we dislike.
Yes,
you know?
I always hear that one. When we get mad at others, it's usually something that we actually don't like about ourselves. And I'm like, and then it's hard because you're like, no, it's not. I don't like that they did it. It has nothing to do with me. And you're like, no, honey, it does have something to do with you. That's so rough. I think like this one, I'm really interested to see kind of like I know you're going to give us some more tips and as we go through this week, but even looking at some of your programs and coaching stuff, I'm really interested to see how you expand on this, because forgiveness has always been, I think, a tough thing for humanity. We have this fight to be right. We prefer to be right rather than happy, which I actually saw was a recent study that people actually would rather be right than have the thing go a good way. Like, for example, someone's like, I know this flight's going to be terrible. There's going to be a crying baby and I'm going to lose my luggage. And then they actually they're happier when it happens, because then they can say, see, I was right, as opposed to being happy that they had a nice flight. It's a really weird thing in humanity. So I think forgiveness is the same thing. It's like we want it to be someone else's fault because it makes it easier to like justify ourselves, but it's all in such a negative space. So I know forgiveness can be it's a deep rooted big issue, but what I'm hearing overall is that it's a part of our happiness. So if we've figured out all these other 7 steps and you're still digging your heels in because you don't like someone for what they did, or you don't like something you did, we're not going to have that true happiness, right? Like that's still going to be that step that's going to hold you back. So my goodness. All right. So forgiveness. So now we have 5, right? We're at 5.
Yeah, and I was just thinking something very easy about forgiveness, that everyone can try to do. It's to think like the 3 big mistakes of your life, and then think what these mistakes bring me in my life.
Yes. Reframing it. What,
like the other side, what my life should be now if I haven't passed that negativity or whatever, because maybe I passed through that period, that person, that situation, because I had to evolve, to develop something else.
Absolutely. No, I have a perfect example for that. Actually, I grew up in a very difficult upbringing, loving parents and all those things, but we were extremely poor. We lived in homeless shelters. We were constantly moving. I went to like 13 different elementary schools. And I think it would be easy to kind of have this anger or upsetness, like why my parents didn't do it right. They made, they made us move all the time because of their choices or experiences. And there was definitely times where I wasn't happy. I wasn't happy when I finally got settled into school for a whole month or 2 and then had to leave again. And it wasn't fun always being the new girl at all. However, as I got older, I learned that one of the things I gained is I can walk into a place I've never been before and make friends right away. I have no problem saying, hey, I'm Tanya. No one knows who I am, but I'm here, because I had to do it so many times in my life. And so, of course, there's an up and downside, right? Like there was other parts where I was like, stability, what is that? And there were difficult parts of my life as well. But there was these other attributes that came from that. And if I only look at the negative, then of course that's all I'm going to see. But it's not that. It's a whole piece, right? So it is looking at that. I love that you brought that up. And another, one of our other episodes, we met with this Dr. Auda Tovar, and she has a whole series called Naked Journaling and Get Naked. And one of the daily practices that she suggested was that you, every day, it sounds really negative, every day find something that you're like beating yourself up over. There's usually something, because of that inner dialogue, right? That's what you're talking about. That inner dialogue is not a nice person most of the time. So there's always something you're beating yourself up over. And she says, find that thing, identify it, whatever. It could be something like, I wasn't spending enough time with my kids today or something. And then, this is what I'm doing. Sit with it for a minute, kind of look at it. That's what it is. Oh, I don't like it. And then say, Tanya, or your name, I love and accept you, even that, for this, I know that this is what happened, and I love and accept you. And like that simple little practice of just switching the dialogue. Because some people are like, oh, big deal, I say it, but I don't feel it. But you start to train your brain to start saying different things. And so I love that because it was a daily practice. And I love what you're saying, because it's like, you're like, look at the big ones too. Like those big ones are, whew, those are rough. But it's easy, it's easy. Simple is not always easy, right? And that's the thing, is that it is so simple, but no one sits around going like, what am I going to do today? I'm going to watch Netflix or work on forgiveness. So it's a rough thing, but that's what we're here for, to hopefully give you the inspiration to make that change. So forgiveness, now what do you do?
Yeah, and the fifth key is a comfort zone.
Now we're there. Okay, comfort zone. So getting out of our comfort zone, and we kind of discussed that was like exercising that courage muscle. What would you suggest as another way for us to move into that, or get a piece of that part of happiness?
Yeah, it can be very simple, because when I talk about comfort zone, people think that they have to do something really huge,
extreme
like
sports.
Extreme sports or something like that. This is nothing about that, but it's simply, for example, it's really funny, like every day doing something different, and it can be have the alarm at another time, for example, not 7:30 but 7:50, even
taking a different route to work, right? Like ordering something besides the latte, getting the cappuccino. I love it.
Very
simple, it can be very simple,
but it's different.
I did this. I'm always doing stuff, right? Because that's the premise of this show. I did something with that. We had a confidence coach. And so I had these different things to try every day. And as I was going through it, and it was more mindset, but I started getting like this urge to wear like these earrings I would never wear. They were like too big, or like wear this bright lipstick color. And for everyone else, like nobody noticed. Nobody was like, oh, wow, wearing a different. But like for me, it was such an act of courage, because I was like, whoa, I wore the red lipstick today. It was like such a big deal. So it's really those things. And I swear by the end of that week, like I was feeling so empowered. I was like, I can wear and do anything I want. So it makes a difference. Like as little as those things may sound to, I think, some people here, I'm telling you, there's power in that. My goodness. And then after that, if you want to do extreme sports and jump out of a plane, you can do that, but it's not required. Right? It's not required. Okay. So awesome. So we finally got to comfort zone. So now what's 6? Where are we with 6?
Yeah, it's about gratitude.
No, right.
Just be grateful for things how they are, and of course my personality as I am. And a very great tool for this, an exercise that's very easy, everyone can do, it's to take, some classical music, just a track, so 3 minutes, something like that, and have a paper and a pen, and just write everything that you can imagine in response of the questions, I am grateful to my life for. And you just write without thinking. So
just whatever comes out. So it can sound silly. It'd be like, for my cat, for this leaf, for the wall being clean. And then eventually you might uncover some much deeper things. Right? I love that. Gratitude is one of those things as well that, I mean, all of this in most ways is simple, right? But it's just like everything else. It's also a practice. And I know for myself, and most of the busy entrepreneurs, busy everyone, right? Who's not busy these days. It's just one of those things that's easy to slip. And so what I did is I have a gratitude alarm on my phone. So my phone goes off at 1 p.m. every day, and it says gratitude. And the deal I made with myself is I have to think of 3 things that I'm grateful for, like right then. So I can be in the middle of anything, unless I'm like on a client call or something, in the middle of anything, and the alarm goes off. It has a certain song, so I always know it's specifically the gratitude alarm. Well, now I know because it's 1, but now it goes off, and I'm like, okay, and I just think of 3 things, and it can be that moment, it could be the grander case, and it's really cool because not only obviously does it work for me, but now my family, they hear it, they're like, gratitude alarm. So now they know. So
fantastic.
I love it. So gratitude again is really just taking time to stop and be grateful for something, because no matter how chaotic, crazy, or crappy your day might be,
Yes.
There is good everywhere,
Yeah.
and it can just be that you're there, that you're breathing. It can be sometimes that you got out of bed, right? Like in the midst of a tough day, and where you're like, I do hate everything right now,
Mhm.
but I got out of bed and I'm at least
Yeah.
grateful for that. Or I got to eat these eggs, like whatever,
Yeah.
it can be whatever it is. And I think the act of teaching us to look for it, because it's easy to find the bad, right? So
Yeah.
if we start to train ourselves to look to find the good, that's really the core thing. It's not even like you were saying, it's not even what you're writing about, it's not even what you're actually saying you're grateful for. It's the act of doing it. It's the act
Yeah.
of training yourself to find the good, because what we focus on is what we create, right?
Yeah, yeah,
So
and still can be something very small. Like I was in a bed earlier, and so I just enjoyed sleeping. Can
right,
be
right.
something really easy.
Yes. Oh my gosh. You're like, I'm going to say this. We had to stop for gas the other day, and I walked in, and we decided to grab some coffee. And I felt like this was my old person moment, but I grabbed one of the napkins. I was like, ooh, this is a nice napkin.
Yeah,
I was like, I am
yeah,
so old. I'm appreciating napkins right now. But I was like, this is a really nice napkin. It felt
yeah,
soft, and I was very mindful in the moment that it was a nice napkin.
yeah,
So that's what happens when you get past your 30s, people. You start
yeah.
liking napkins. So, all right. So gratitude. What do we have next?
Yeah, it's about kindness and empathy. So,
Okay.
sometimes we don't think about that. So we are, so in our daily life, our work, and for example, sometimes we just forget to contact people we are close, and just have
Yes.
a dinner with an important friend or with my family or whatever. But being close to important people of our life, it's
Yeah.
really something that gives us a lot of energy. So,
Yes. And it's an easy thing. Again, I've seen all the jokes
yes,
where it's like, having friends when you're older is just texting each other, we should hang out soon until one of you dies. Like they say, like that's what happens, because we all get so busy and we start to lose those connections and the ability to do that.
yeah,
And I think in our society, we all accept that as inevitable. And then one of us does die, right? And that's it. And that's, I think, from someone who has gone through death, I think that's one of the things that you start to really go, you know what, like I don't want to wait till that person's gone to start appreciating what's
yeah,
here. Like that's when the regrets and those things come in. And so I've actually been very, very mindful every year, actually. And most people know I'm a crazy planner, but every year I actually choose a specific set of people, usually 2 to 3 people, every month, that I want to make sure to connect with.
yeah,
Usually my family's like on the calendar. So I always have like check in with my brother, check in with my mom, but then I'll have a couple people who I don't talk to as often. I see on social media, but like that
yeah,
doesn't count, guys. So I will actually put them down, like, okay, in November, make sure to reach out to Annie. And, this December, make sure you connect with Mina, and make sure, like, I actually write their names in the months, because if I get a hold of them before that, great. But if not, I've made like a conscious choice and plan to connect, to reach out, to get on
yeah,
that phone call and just talk for a couple minutes,
yeah,
like not just watch on social media.
yeah.
So I love that. But you also, I mean, it wasn't just connecting though. So it was also kindness was in there. So is there a specific way that we're supposed to cultivate
Yeah.
kindness? How do we do that?
Yeah, this is something really related to kindness and empathy. Like, for example, if I talk with a friend who has a problem, I think I have to give some advice. This is very normal. We usually do that. Like,
Right.
someone has a problem, I have to fix it because he's talking with
That's
me.
what
So,
kindness is. That's what love and
yeah,
care is. I have to fix everything.
But the real empathy, the real kindness, it's just to listen to that people
Yeah.
and just say, oh yes, I understand you, I've been through that, or should be really difficult to you. And
Yeah.
this open a lot for the other people to solve alone,
Yeah.
because this is not what he's looking for, even because the mind, which produces a problem, will produce the solution. So
Right,
we're not
right.
able to fix other people's problems, you know. So probably they just need to be connected with us, to be listened to us, to feel that we are open and that we feel what they are feeling. So this is very, very powerful. Just try
Yeah.
to don't give advice, even if someone
Oh yeah, that's a
comes.
really important one too. Sometimes
Yeah,
just your presence and being there is actually what we
yeah,
need. Well, so I love that. So really wrapping that particular part up, it's like one of these keys to happiness is our connection with others. It actually has a lot to do with not us. It has to do with when we're there for others, when we're
yeah,
connecting with others. There's actually something that feeds our soul and feeds us that lends to our happiness, but it's not through us. It's actually through that connection with others, bringing, like you said, empathy,
yeah,
kindness. And so I'm sure that can be with connection with friends and family. Or I'm assuming also we can find that through volunteering situations or just doing something that's outside of ourselves, right? Something
yeah,
that's outside of serving ourselves, right? So
yeah,
really serving others. So, okay, that makes sense.
yeah,
That makes
yeah.
sense. So now we're at, where are we? 7? We at 7 now?
We are at the 8, life purpose.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm always missing one somewhere. Okay, so we're actually at 8.
Yeah.
Okay. And so this one, what is this one again?
It's life purpose date.
Live purpose, right.
Yeah.
Okay. And so we did dive into that one already a little bit about what that really kind of meant for
Yeah.
you. And so you said you'll have some kind of tips that we can maybe find what those strengths are. Well, you said the strengths, but then when we kind of identify our values,
Yeah.
do you have any tips for maybe how we find our values or discover those values?
Yeah, for strengths and values, we can just, answer two very simple questions. So, for example, which are the activities that I've been doing when I was a child and I am still doing? Which
Right.
are the things that really motivates me and energize me? Which are the moments I feel I am the true self? So, not that situation in which I act as I am supposed to be.
Mm.
And which things are never on my to-do list? Because, for example, as I like dancing, I don't have to write on my to-do list. I remember to
Oh, I
do
like that. That's a fun one.
that.
Unless you're crazy like me, I put everything on a list, but I love that. Yeah, it's like something that you're gonna do. You know it's in you that you're gonna
Yeah,
do, right? So you don't even have
yeah,
to think twice about it. So those
yeah,
things will kind of help you identify your values, and then as we discussed before, those values help you kind of help you align with some purpose. And again,
yeah,
purpose, I have to tell you guys, is not specific to a job or
yeah,
action, but it is specific to what you choose to engage in and
yeah,
what you choose to make a priority to do in your life, right? I mean,
yeah,
that's really what our lives were meant for, was to live in a sense of joy and excitement and passion. And it doesn't mean it's always there. Doesn't mean it's always going to be hunky-dory,
yeah.
even if you find that, but your purpose, why you want to keep going, because
Yeah,
you
it's
have
just a
something.
sense of direction.
Yeah,
Doesn't mean
absolutely.
I have always to be on the top.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's the big misconception about happiness,
yeah,
right? I mean,
yeah,
that's the thing, that I'll get there and it's going to be
yeah,
blissful. And then we think we're doing it wrong because it's not looking that way. But as you've explained in all of these things, I think the first part that we're realizing is there's work to be done.
yeah,
There's a work to be done. And that alone is another misconception. We think that, it should just be there. It should
yeah,
just, and in a way it is there. It is there. We've had years and years of kind of like muck and blindness and things come through and other beliefs coming that have kept us from that. But really our truest nature exists at that simplicity level of like happiness and clarity. But we've taken on a bunch, through our own experiences and brokenness and what's been brought to us, I think, to cloud that vision. And so essentially, you guys, what Julie has given us here is like, if you're feeling like there's no light at the end of the tunnel, these are the steps to start working towards, right?
yeah,
And not steps, but again, just pieces to start looking at. And
yeah,
you may see like, look, I have courageous steps every day. Well, great. So maybe there's someone we need to forgive, or maybe there's, something else that we can look at. And it sounds like when we get a lot of these aligned, then we'll step into that happiness. But it doesn't mean, like I said, like you said, there's always going to be a mountain. There's always going to be something.
yeah,
So as you get into one level, something else may change over here where there's a new level of courage. But now we
yeah,
have the foundation to walk through that from a background of happiness, right? Not from a background of despair or victimization. So I think that's so powerful. I'm so excited about these 8 steps. So, well, before my last question, Julia, I do want to ask you, please let everyone know where they can find you, what you have going on, how to connect with you, and learn more from you.
Yeah, of course. I have my page on Facebook. There is Giulia Imbastoni Coach. And on Instagram, I am just Giulia Imbastoni. And I have the website, but I'm working to recreate it. So now people can find me, but in few months they will see my new website.
So we'll follow you on social media, and then we'll get the big website announcement. So we'll be good for that.
Yes.
Yeah. And do you have any like current programs or anything where people can work with you right now?
Yeah, the 8 keys to happiness can done by individual coaching program.
See, so you can go in and so you don't have to just listen to this and figure it out on your own, guys. You can hear this and be like, okay, now I need to go work with Julia. So that's amazing. So you do specifically work on these steps in this and like guiding and working with people. And as you guys heard in that introduction, like this is what she does for companies. Like this works on a company scale as well for people to working together and going towards a bigger goal, as well as of course individuals. Yeah. So yeah, that's amazing. And it makes total sense. So awesome. Well, so now for my last question, what is the assignment that you'll have for me to do this next week?
Yeah. I will ask you to do a morning meditation. It will be 5-10 minutes, and it will be targeted to one of these pieces. So about mindfulness, about being in the flow, mind shift, whatever. And then journaling at the evening. It's very 5-10 minute activity, not more. And then on the second date, I will ask you to take the strengths assessment. So we will have your top strengths.
Oh, I'm excited. Okay.
Yeah. And then on the 5th day, I will send you a coaching and action plan. So basically will be which are your learnings, and so what are you going to do differently now that you learn this wonderful team.
So it's kind of like a week of awareness, right? So like I kind of start with some different focuses, and then at the evening for journaling, is there something specific that I should focus on, or is it just a free flow?
No, I will send you some specific, and it's always related to the 8 keys of happiness.
Oh my goodness. I love it. I love it that it's organized. I'm the organization queen. I love it. Okay, guys. Well, it's so awesome. I have my assignment for the week. So you guys, if you want to learn more about the specifics that I'm going to get from her, then make sure to follow along and see how it goes on My Design Life Show on Facebook and Instagram. And if you want to join along with me, then let me know how you're doing by tagging us at My Design Life Show and using the hashtag happiness now. And if you like this and you want to see more, make sure to click that subscribe button and be notified each time a new episode comes out. You can also get more on our website, mydesignlife.show and taniamfk.com. We will see you here every Monday to create a life you love. And remember, your someday starts today. Make it the best. I'm Tania MFK. I'll see you next time. Do you have methods, tips, or hacks to live your best life? Be a guest on our show. Contact us at mydesignlife.show to submit an application.